All right. And it's not. There we go. Hey, everybody. Hi, Neeko. Hi, Elix. How
Hello.
are you guys?
I'm doing wonderful.
I'm doing great.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Okay. Well, first and foremost, I would love for you guys to give your a little introduction about you. Tell me who you are, where you're from, what's your channel about. Give me a little whole introduction. Give me your spiel. Could you go first, Elix?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I am Elix. I am a first generation Mexican American. I immigrated to this country when I was like 6 or 7. Most of my background is in human resources. I used to work at Tesla and then I started streaming full time. What can you find on my channel? I love playing horror games. I've been playing a lot of battle royales recently. Naraka, the most gorgeous battle royale out right now, but it's super difficult. And that's me in a little nutshell.
Woo!
Perfect.
Well, okay. I'm not not a smart girly like Alex, but my name is Nicole. My parents are from Mexico, so my first language is Spanish, and yeah, I dropped out of college and I started streaming, and here we are. I do a lot of variety. Mostly, I love League of Legends.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I used to be obsessed with League, but then, uni happened. So I'm just so you guys know a little bit more about me. I'm Jubby. I go by Jubby. I used to be a producer for another streamer. But mainly what I do nowadays is I do GTA roleplay and a lot of variety games. I roleplay as a drag queen. Ricardo Perez, thank you very much. And no pixel. But if you want to know a little bit about me, I'm Puerto Rican. I moved out of Puerto Rico when I was 19 to the UK to go and study. I did a whole bachelor's and a master's. Do I regret it? 100%. I was about to be a doctor. Okay, I was on
Oh
third year
my
med school
god.
and then I decided to quit. So, my journey has been a little bit different than a lot of streamers in this platform. But today there is something very important for us to do. Obviously, it is Latin Hispanic Heritage Month. So happy Latin Hispanic Heritage Month. We are today in celebration with the Twitch Latin Guild, going to be interviewing Neeko here to hear about her experience in community building in two different languages. If you guys don't know, she has had a channel success story in Spanish and in English. So it is something that a lot of the members of our guild and in general would like to hear about, because a lot of people want to make that change, but they might be either scared, they might know how to do it, and it is wonderful to have insight from somebody who's been able to do it. So, knowing all of that, I would like to start with, I guess, the first question. I guess let's start simple. Why did you decide to start streaming in another language in the first place?
Well, I just saw that obviously it wasn't absent. I guess the proper wording is hard to find. Community of Spanish speaking Latina community, and I wanted to at least I didn't know where my people were, so I was like, at least maybe I could try to at least reflect that, and maybe we find each other. So then I started streaming bilingually, and like unfortunately that's kind of a little too confusing for people, because now you're repeating yourself in different languages and it just gets very overwhelming. So then I just started doing a separate channel in Spanish that I have to restart again, because handling two channels is really really hard. But
Yes.
after I had like a viral moment, it was a little bit more easier to infiltrate the Spanish community, because some of them already knew who I was, and yeah, and then building a community off that. But yeah, that's kind of why I started, because I wanted to find that connection with my people. You know.
I feel like we can all relate to that. I think that that's one of the major reasons why me and Elix are both, co-leads for the Twitch Latin Guild. We wanted to make sure that we could create a
Hmm.
community that, people like us could find our community as well, and our people, as we say. So I remember you started doing on your channel. You said you were doing bilingual streams on the main channel. What was like the kicker? What was like, okay, I think I should start doing a whole separate channel for just like my Spanish streams.
I think aside from it being a little overwhelming with like repeating myself and like saying things that other people didn't understand, like people that don't know Spanish, and then unfortunately people end up feeling left out when you speak English and people in Spanish don't know English and people in English don't know Spanish, and then there's that small little crossover right
Yeah.
there that like knows English and Spanish, but like it was, I feel like I was leaving a lot of people out. So I was just like, let me make another channel because there's a different, it's not just enough knowing Spanish, it's knowing the slang, the context, the history, the that camaraderie that comes with like talking to people from a similar same background as you. There's a lot of like sazon that's missing.
Yup.
When you're speaking in Spanish, but it's different when speaking to people in Spanish that are from here. For example, no offense, but like my brother, like he doesn't know the same sazon as like, for example, Elix or you do, or other friends from that other streamers from that are Mexican streamers or Latina streamers. So yeah, that's kind of like what I wanted to be able to connect, like that connection level.
Mm.
You're like kind of living your Gloria Estefan moment. Like she went and crossed over, and she still blew up. I hope I'm not revealing my age. We all know who Gloria Estefan is, right?
Yes, of course. Not the age reveal.
But I feel like I want to try something like that too. And I feel like I'm a student here. Like I'm taking notes in my head because I talk so much Spanish in my stream. Like Neeko was saying earlier, you're always repeating yourself. And then sometimes you repeat yourself, but what you're trying to say in English or vice versa just does not translate because with a sazon.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thank you, Neeko.
No, that's so true. Like sometimes, the Spanish is so beautiful. Okay, I don't know if you guys have seen this like video of the Modern Family with the mom where she says like, you don't know how smart I am in Spanish. Okay, that's literally how I feel every time I stream. I'm like, God, if only I could just speak in Spanish, you guys would see how smart I am.
Yeah.
Like I
especially you guys, because Alexa said that Alexa, am I able to reiterate what you said earlier about where you're from? That you
absolutely,
you immigrated
please,
here.
Please.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So like they were from Mexico, right?
Mexicali, Baja California, right at the border, right crossing the border.
So yeah. So Elix, she was from Mexico, and then and then she immigrated here, and it's like that. I would even say, Latina wise, both of you are like so much more even immersed than I am, so yeah, I feel like that's it could be a little hard to really convey that in a bilingual stream, like repeating yourself and so yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it stays in the theme. This next question. So, how do you make your audience not feel out when you speak in like Spanish or English? When, like, let's say you're on your Spanish channel and you sometimes have to say some words in English. How do you make your audience not feel like alienated from that?
I try to keep things a little bit more orderly. I appreciate when English speakers come into my chat and speak in English and like want to support my stream in Spanish, but I give like a little warning in English. I'm like, hey, this is my Spanish channel. I'm only speaking in Spanish. If you're okay with that, you're more than welcome to hang out and enjoy the stream. But if you don't like it, I have an English channel that you're more than welcome to ask questions. If you want to learn Spanish, you could. I hope this channel is helpful. But I only speak in Spanish here, just so I could keep people. So my Spanish streamers don't end up feeling left out when they came here and they expected Spanish, right? And
Yeah.
then my English speakers go to my English channel and they expect English, and then I'm speaking in Spanish and they're like, I don't understand. And I'm like, so it is a little hard just in the content aspect. I feel like it's easier if they know who you are, that you speak English and Spanish, but for the
Mm-hmm.
content aspect, you kind of want to keep them separate. And I think there's a unity in there somewhere, even if you're keeping those two contents, those two languages separately. In my Discord, I have an English and Spanish option, so they could check English and Spanish if they want to see channels in English and in Spanish. But I asked them to please keep to their respective languages. So in the English channels, only speak English, and the Spanish channels only speak Spanish. But you're more than welcome to interact in both of them.
That's actually very smart. I
Can
never even
I
thought of that.
can I ask a question to piggyback off of that? Because Mama, Neeko, that is a lot of work to manage, to
Yes.
juggle 2 channels in 2 separate languages.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever feel overwhelmed? And if you do, what do you do? Like, how do you
Yeah.
handle that?
I do feel overwhelmed. Luckily, I think you could do the best you can with what you have. Of course, not everyone can have a team with them, but recently, I got she's like my personal assistant slash coordinator, and she helps me on all the back end. Of course, I still have to translate things for her, but even with that, having someone just help you do things like the technical stuff, because learning Discord is a whole other
Mm.
skill
Mm.
set,
Yes, it is.
that I don't have. So
Oh my
if you
goodness.
already have
Wait,
that
Neeko,
skill set, oh, go ahead,
so
go
you
ahead.
have separate Discords too?
No.
And
So it's
separate channels?
no. I only have one
Okay.
Discord. I used to have 2
Okay, work.
Discords, and that was too much work. So so I have one Discord, but they get to check English or Spanish. So it's like a setting that
Okay.
it's like a mod that I put. They could check
Okay, look
English
how
and
smart
Spanish.
you are.
Yeah. So so they check English and Spanish, and then if you only check English, you only see the English channels, and if you check Spanish, you only see
Oh.
Spanish channels. But if you click both of them, you could see all the channels. So it's
Mm.
whatever you prefer. So I like to encourage people to explore Spanish, but also I don't want to also like overwhelm them with it if they don't even care to speak Spanish, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I leave those decisions to people's own discretion.
Well, that
Yeah.
is
Thank
actually
you.
something that I probably am going to be implementing. I never even thought of that. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is
that's
so smart.
it's so efficient too. It's so
Yes.
efficient.
Because then
I'll
they're
credit
the
that
ones who
idea to
choose.
Kylie.
Huh?
I'll credit that idea to my coordinator. She's super smart. Love her.
Yeah, I got a chance to meet her. She's been amazing throughout this whole process. Well, speaking of the whole make sure everything is separated, do you have like did you make a decision to get mods who only speak Spanish and only speak English to help you out in like
Mm.
these separate channels?
Mm,
Or do you
so
just have like the same mods in both?
So to some degree, some of the English mods don't necessarily need to speak Spanish to know when something's bad, right? If someone posts like a video or a picture.
Right.
Of course, I could always use more mods, but it's all volunteer work technically, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so you don't necessarily need to know Spanish or English in particular to know when something is bad. But when it does come to those written things that are bad, I do have like 2 or 3 mods that are in Spanish that kind of just like look through things
Make
and
sure
just
everything's all
briefly go
nice,
through
you
it.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, I have like two to three mods. But I'm pretty sure normally I see channels that have quite a couple mods, so one of them is bound to know like a little Spanish.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you didn't want to like alienate other streamers that come onto your channel. How was networking in a whole other community? Because I know that the Spanish speaking community on Twitch is thriving. It is big and it could be a scary place.
Yeah.
How was your experience starting to network with all these different streamers?
So I think to some degree it's similar to networking in English. You know, you have people that probably only want you just to collaborate. Some people want to be friends. Some people just kind of like want to just be someone that knows you. So there's those same like intentions in English and in Spanish. And I guess for me, I kind of have the opposite problem of you guys, where you guys are like, oh, you don't know how like amazing I am when I speak Spanish, right? Like my full personality. For me, it's like kind of the other way around, since English is more my dominant language. Um, in my social cues, I feel like in Spanish, I almost give people a pass because, like, again, like there's like that sense of camaraderie in Spanish, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, the intentions are similar or even the same, where people only want to collaborate with you, or some people are actually want to be friends with you, or some people just want to know you to get to this other person, you know? So the intentions are the same. There's fake people and there's nice people. But unfortunately, I have this tendency of giving people a pass because I'm like, oh, eres mi amigo, eres mi amiga, no sea, tenemos algo en común. Um, but yeah, I wish I probably was able to distinguish those people more in Spanish rather than, like, you know, in English I could clock them real easily,
Yeah.
but like in Spanish is a little harder, and I hate that
Yeah.
that I can't clock them as well, you know?
Yeah, I guess I understand because you did kind of go out into a whole different set of streamers. Like, as you mentioned, like in English, you kind of know which streamers are there to either for collab or they're genuinely there to be your friend. But when
Yeah,
you're going into a community where you might not know any streamer that just streams
right.
focuses only in Spanish, but they know of you. So you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. And if you're not as as proficient in the language, then you might be like, okay, I'll give everybody a pass, but I don't know exactly who's gonna be good or not. So I guess it's
Right,
some trial
right.
and error.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, go ahead, Elix.
I was just gonna, I wanted to bring the question up since we're speaking about, juggling both languages, channels, and the amazing efficiency you have on Discord. We kind of spoke about this off of the stream, but something that I get really insecure about because my Spanish is very old school. I came to this country when I was 6, 7. And so a lot of the things back then that I learned how to say in Spanish could be considered ableist, discriminatory.
Mhm.
And I'll give an example. This one time I was in a DVD tournament with a lot, and it was a Spanish speaking gig, and I was invited to it. And I said a certain thing that came off as ableist. I was telling somebody, hey, where are you? And I was saying it as a joke because that's how my family jokes around. And again, because I studied English in the States and not Spanish, I said, oh my God, está ciega, which when you translate it, it does translate as ableist. But I feel like in Spanish, especially Mexican Spanish, like people wouldn't see it that way.
Mhm.
So I guess the question is, how do you navigate through that to ensure that you might not say something that could be considered discriminatory or ableist in Spanish, and someone might run off with it and do a twit long when those were not your intentions?
Um, so I try to be like as PC as possible. I have noticed, like, we were talking about this off stream, is that the Spanish and the community, of course, there's always someone that is like, yo, like, you know, that's ableist, um, but they seem to not be too quick to be like, yo, that's ableist. Like, I'm very offended. Like, apologize right now. So I have seen a lot more either not very much caring or not quick to jump onto that. But as I was speaking to both Elix and Jubby, is that even though I feel, I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like the Latina community still has a lot of progressiveness to do. So
Mm-hmm.
even though with with these sayings and stuff at the moment, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I I'm negative 4.75 my vision. I would have not been offended by it, like, saying that. Without my contacts, I cannot see, not a single bit. But but it doesn't change that maybe we as like kind of the first one of the first waves of Spanish speaking streamers on the English community, that we can make that progressive take and maybe change those things a little bit. But yeah, I do still think that the Latina community has a lot more progressiveness to be done, and it's a learning experience. And I think overall, I hope people aren't quick to think that the first thing someone wants to do is offend, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah, and I think we should give people a little bit more kindness and leniency, because not everyone, the first thing that they want to do is offend someone. But
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And I do have a follow-up question to that as well, because sorry, this whole thing is just inspiring a lot of new questions. But I'm trying to be more progressive with my Spanish language. When I see my family, the only family I have in the States are my parents and my brothers, who are also, well, my twin brother's an immigrant. My little brother was born here. And when I'm with them, we only speak Spanish. And so that's like my only way to be progressive. But like I also am I still watch telenovelas, but those aren't that progressive either. I mean,
No, they're
come on, y'all, you
not.
know
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah.
The language they use in telenovelas are not progressive. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to really get books and learn more about just the Spanish language, because I want to be really cognizant of what I say. So, and if you have anything, and if not, that's fine. What do you do to keep your language progressive
Mhm.
and fresh in Spanish?
Um, I don't. So as far as like the meaning of certain words, like in Spanish, there's a lot of phrases, right? In the Latina
Oh
community, there's
yeah.
so
And they
many
don't
phrases,
translate at all,
and
mama.
they
They
don't
don't translate
translate
at
at all.
all. As
Yeah,
bad as you want them to.
yeah, and some of them absolutely are not meant. They're meant to describe something so simple, but maybe they have some kind of
Hmm.
colorist or racist connotation behind it, even though the phrase
Hmm.
itself probably doesn't have anything to do with that, you know? So
Yeah.
so I just try to like not say any words that I don't like. I try not to say any words or phrases that I don't entirely know where they come from or what their meaning is. Because I heard these phrases growing up, right? And you think they mean
Yeah.
something, and then
Hmm.
you find out it's like, oh, there's like this whole connotation behind it that's super toxic. So I just try to steer away, and even though it does take out the quote unquote like sazon out of like my speech, at least I
Hmm.
know that like I'm not probably saying something that's completely out of line, that in my mind I'm like, oh, this is something my family always said, but then it's like completely out of line. So that's what I try to do. I try to just like straight just stay away from phrases and words that I have no idea or kind of haven't, unless I'm really sure what they mean. I try not to say them at all, even if I hear other people say them, like other like streamers say them. Like I said, there's still a lot of progressiveness that needs to be done, and even though they say it, who knows, someone's gonna probably bring up that clip in 5 years and they're gonna be like, remember when you said this? And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so I just, it sucks because it's like, I don't want to, I want to cut, because I'm always questioned about the authenticity of my Latinness, my Latinaness,
Oh
um
yes,
A lot of
yes.
so
people
the
struggle
fact
with that. Yeah.
so
Yep.
I'm like, it's like, oh, you say phrases, you have this things that you guys do that is in common, that enables that connection to have with people. So even if it means I'm sacrificing validating my Latinaness with these sayings and this language, at least I know that, like, hey, I'm not offending anybody, and people are not going to stop watching me just because you know I lack a little sazon that I used to have, probably.
Well, listen, all I can tell you
Yeah.
is that you shouldn't question how Latino you are. If you are of descent, you should not have to worry about
Yep.
something I say always. Just because you don't fully
Same.
speak the language, it does not mean you're any
Hmm.
less Latino than I am. Really, like I know that
And that's so
that's a big
prevalent.
thing. At least in my experience, people from Puerto Rico who live there, they always say that people who are born, like, we have a lot of diaspora in New York, we call them New
Mhm.
Yorkers. We say not me, sorry, not we, a lot of Puerto Ricans say that they're not real Puerto Ricans because they weren't born in Puerto Rico and they don't speak Spanish. But when you compare both of us, we have the same cultural connotations, they just have an accent in English. we also have an accent in English. Like, I don't know why they say they're any less Latino than we are, because we are really not. We're both the same. The language doesn't have to do anything on whether you're less Latino or not. So really, in my opinion, I don't think you should worry about it. I know that's always an internal struggle, but I can tell you that you're very much as much Latina as we are. So you
Yeah,
shouldn't.
I see Neeko and I'm like, she looks like one of my primas. Like, that's my prima, my cousin. I literally, no, I'm not even joking.
But
I think that I saw her. Oh gosh. I saw her Hispanic with the Hispanic Heritage Month thing when we were doing the Dune thing a couple
The
of years
Dune
ago.
thing,
We were
yeah,
gonna watch
yeah.
Dune, and I literally said, "Neeko, prima," and I gave her the biggest hug. But I think that even comes down to a really popular saying in Spanish that goes "ni de aquí, ni de allá."
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
from here and not from there. And it's always an internal struggle with all of us. And I'm sure you know, Jubby just explained it. Neeko's explained a few things here and there. But I think it's finding that even ground for all of us. And because it turns into what it is, ultimately what it is, it's within you. Because you'll go to Mexico and you're like, no, you're not Mexican enough. And it'll turn into a colorist thing too. I've heard your Spanish isn't that great. You're not dark enough. But then you come to the United States and they tell you, oh no, you're not one of us. You're not white enough. You don't speak English well enough.
You're
But like,
anchor baby or whatever.
yes,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
too. That too. Oh, and that can lead me to the next question, if you don't mind, Jubby.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of
How do you
course.
deal with that in your chat when people ask you stuff like, you don't like, maybe it'll be someone who lives in Mexico and will be like, you don't seem Mexican enough, or it could be a white person that says something else. That could be like, how do you navigate through that? How do you answer that? How do you deal with that on stream in real time?
Oh my god, I get like sassy because it's like, oh, it's like, oh, like for some reason I have got told that like, oh, you look like white, and I'm like, first of all, we got colonized, so I'm sorry that
Thank
like
you.
I have some European in me. And second of all, it's like the primas at the rancho are using the whitening filter, so I don't know what you mean about me like not looking Mexican
so
enough. Like the
true.
primas at the
Yeah.
rancho are using the whitening filter.
Go the
They look-
foundation 10 shades lighter and you see the
Yeah.
picture. You see the picture. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
yeah. It's like deal with your internalized colorism, because if I was and the browner I am, the more you point it out, right? The lighter I am, oh, I'm not Mexican enough or Latina enough, and I'm just like, what, like Mexico or in Latin America is such a mixing pot, especially with the colonization that happened. Like there's a mixing pot of people, you know, there's Afro Latinos, there's very fair skinned Latinos, there's brown Latinos, there's indigenous Latinos. Like there's so many types of Latinos, Latinas, Latinas. There's so many. So like the fact that you're over here trying to like question me it like I'm about to drag you. But
Exactly.
Listen,
but
I've
yeah.
learned to not even look twice at anybody who speaks Spanish,
Yeah.
because like in Puerto Rico, we have a large influence of Americans, because it's really, you know, we're technically, we have an American passport. We don't consider ourselves Americans, but we have an American passport, so it's really easy for Americans to travel or move there if they would want to. And I've learned to see somebody blue-eyed, fair skin, blonde hair, and you see them and they are like fully Puerto Rican. Like I have cousins who are straight up, you see them and they're like the definition of European. And they're
Yeah.
as Puerto Rican as me. They're probably even more Puerto Rican because they have an accent of El Campo, as we say, you know? But something that I do want to bring back is that you guys say is that this happens to me all the time. Some sayings don't translate. It is so true, because whenever you guys were saying that, all I can think of is this one saying that I always say is camarón que se duerme se lo lleva la corriente, which literally translates to like
Yes.
the shrimp that sleeps, the river takes. Like, how does that, how do you explain to that, who's somebody who doesn't speak Spanish? It is like so many things that I always say. And for example, I tend to like react also like in Spanish. Like whenever, let's say I'm playing a game and I'm like really into it. Let's say I'm playing Overwatch, right? And I die in the game. I'm like, ay coño. Like I always cuss in Spanish out of like a reaction. You will never hear me cuss in English. Like that's not me. It is so true how we. Oh.
My cousin sent me this picture. I was looking for it. It says árbol que se duerme en la corriente porque camarón que nace torcido. It's like three sayings in one, and I thought it was hilarious. And I was like,
These sayings
I-
don't
That's such a
translate.
sarcastic version.
yeah.
Yeah.
I told my
love
mom
that.
about it, and she's like, why did you say three sayings in one? She was so confused.
The sayings thing
But that
is
was
really a
funny.
big thing because we communicate in sayings, okay? And it's so true. Like sometimes, you just have to hit them with the wise saying of a Puerto Rican or of any Latino. And people just don't get it. In English, I don't really know many sayings. I don't think they do that in English a lot, do they? Like
No.
the same
¿Dónde está el
situation.
sazón, mami? ¿Dónde está el sazón?
Right, a little bit of
there's not
adobo and
enough of it,
sazon
that's
is
for
always
sure.
so confusion.
And that's why we're here.
Exactly. Okay, so I guess let's segue into the next question.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. One second. My headset died.
Oh no.
I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No worries.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
We're live, so stuff like that happens all the time.
Okay.
You good?
Got you.
Okay, you're perfect. Oh yeah, another one. Somebody said sana sana colita de rana. Girl, that's literally heel butt of a frog. How do we translate that?
Yep.
Anyways,
You can't.
So, one of the important things is what changes did you make to make sure that that you could I don't want to say appeal because that's not the right word, but I can't think of any other word to a majority Hispanic viewership. I know there's another word. I don't want to say appeal, but that's the word that comes to mind right now. Sorry.
I've noticed that the Spanish community is pretty accepting. So even if you go in already having a follower base from like English, or not having one at all, if you just have that consistent flow of content, you're gonna grow a viewership. There are I'm not trying to say that. How do I frame this? There is almost a lack of amount of streamers in the Spanish speaking community as opposed to the English. In the English community, saturated, right? Millions of people stream in English. In the Spanish community, it's still far less. So it's a really good time to do it because the more that you stream, I've seen people literally jump to averaging like 1K just being consistent because there is actually not that many Spanish content creators. So it's not really a sense of like appealing, it's rather like what do you have to offer. The market is so accepting. I guess you don't have as much competition, which I think is like a really good opportunity to take. But yeah, I don't think it's about appealing, it's about people are hungry to connect and have those streamers and YouTubers and you just got to dive into it. So I think that's kind of like I was real lucky enough to have like a little bit of a following before I started doing Spanish, but I would say that's a completely different world that with endless possibilities and a lot of opportunity.
Okay. So, we all learn by doing, and sometimes, we make mistakes. Do you mind sharing something that didn't work for you when you first made the switch to doing a channel fully in Spanish? Let's rephrase this, I guess. What would you do differently if you would be starting today a channel in Spanish?
Consistency, because that's just like a me problem, right? Because I juggling two channels. But I guess honestly, I could work on this on all aspects. I guess there isn't anything that's specifically Spanish focused that really does or makes like a huge difference that you can't already do like in English and Spanish. That's like versatile, I guess. Aside from consistency, I would like to work on my networking more, and really like let people know that I'm just not a American trying to like infiltrate the Spanish speaking community that, hey, like I'm trying to find my people. I belong here. I just also speak English. I'm not like that's pretty much it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much I would like to get to know other streamers and be better at clocking things and know when something is just a content exchange and people that actually want to be my friends. So I think just working on that front is something I would like to do. And knowing more like social cues and that chemistry in Spanish rather than just kind of like going in blind, kind of like really diving into that community and immersing myself in it
Well, the
a
good
lot
thing
more.
about it is you have both the leaders of the Twitch Latin Guild. So if you're ever interested in joining a guild that we're full of Latina streamers, you're more than
Yeah.
welcome to join
You're
us.
pretty much my prima. You should be here,
Literally.
prima.
Yeah, no, honestly.
You're more than welcome. We have a full community of people. They're all at all points trying to collab and all.
I
We share opportunities to them. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Elix.
I have a personal question, and you can not answer this. I'll share my experience, but I do have a personal question, and it's in regards to identity because it's something I struggled a lot coming to this country. Sorry, give me 1 second. It's something that I struggled a lot coming to this country, being raised as Mexican, but then, being introduced to the whole culture change and not feeling like que soy de aquí ni de allá. I'm not from here and I'm not from there.
Right.
And then when I had finally realized, wait, no, this is who you are. This is who your identity is. And I became an adult and I started working in corporate. I'm going to talk about an experience that happened to me. I started human resources and learning and development, and I was a speaker. And I remember I had just joined this company, and oh my goodness, did they need help with what Hispanic heritage was. I was the only Hispanic person there. And so to them, Hispanic heritage was a thick accent, tequila shots, quesadillas, tacos, and try to go in there and be really talking about, no, that's not what it's about. So my question is, actually, no, let me actually share the experience. I remember I was going to speak to people about my background, and my boss told me, hey, can you make your accent a little thicker? It's a little white. And I looked at her and I was new here and I'm like, am I going to really jeopardize my integrity? What what do I do here? I don't want to lose this job. This is a great job. I need the benefits. It's paying really, really well. But at the end of the day, I just thought of my upbringing and my identity and how long it took me to accept who I was, not just from a Mexican standpoint, but also being LGBT. And I'll talk about another experience where I was told, to butch it up. You don't sound man enough. But going back to, sounding Mexican and having a thicker accent.
Mm.
Have you ever had anyone, and this could be on streaming or maybe a gig you had off stream that had nothing to do with streaming and you feel comfortable answering, where someone made you question your identity or told you to Mexican it up? And for everyone that knows who the actress is, America Ferrera, she was in the English version of Ugly Betty. She did this amazing speech talking about her identity. And to me, my identity is my superpower, because regardless of what I went through, I still was who I was, and I didn't want to, make it more Mexican or sound more manly. So my question, have you ever been asked to really milk your background, to talk more Mexican, to dye your hair, whatever it may be? And how did you navigate through that, and how did it translate that to you?
Well, oh my God, so many like different aspects of what you said like made me think of so many different talking points. First of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That lady, like, get your ish together,
Sound more
woman. Like,
Mexican.
Jesus Christ. In regards to like Mexicaning it up, like I've been told that by my own community. They were like, they're like, you sound like so white. Like, oh my gosh, you speak English so well. And next thing, like, I talk like this, and next thing you know, like, hablo español muy bien. O sea, no se nota mucho el acento cuando hablo en español. So
Uh-huh.
then it's like, they're like, oh, how do you speak so well in both languages? And I'm like, shocker, like we exist. Like I'm like I like it's I don't understand what the confusion is. Like why do you think being Mexican means you need to have a thick accent. Of course, like if English isn't your first language, anyone would have an accent in any language, right? So like, why the hell like are you telling me that, oh, like it's not a requirement, you know? So with that being said, I have been told that by my own community. I'm not gonna lie, it has been in my benefit to show my background, not only of course to share my background with my community, and it's part of my identity, of course, like you said, my identity is my
Mhm.
superpower, but also it's brought about a lot of opportunities. I guess in any way that I could showcase my identity, and if it ends up benefiting me in other aspects, I welcome it. But also, there's also like a I think with your situation, it was really hard because you do not have, I guess you might feel like you don't have the upper hand in that situation because like you said, oh, like I get these benefits, like it's such a good paying job. You might have a harder time being like, hey, like please don't say that, you know? With myself, luckily I haven't ran into a situation where someone's told me like make yourself, and at least in the professional aspect, to make myself, like getting Sofia Vergara, like, oh, have a thicker accent, or like uh be more spicy, or
Yeah. Oh
so
my god.
luckily I haven't had that
It's so
issue.
triggering.
But being in the position I am, I feel like even having an upper hand as someone that is in my position in the influencer world, I would 100%, like, again, this is depends on your position. Like, you were in a completely different position where you did not have the upper hand.
Mhm.
I feel like in these professional aspects, I could have an upper hand, and I can be like, hey, I don't appreciate that you like are telling me to do these things, and this is why they're harmful, and I appreciate if you don't ask me to do that again. And hopefully that makes it easier for my fellow Latina community that maybe doesn't have the upper hand. So yeah, like it sucks that people have to go through that situation in different, no matter what your background is. um but yeah, I have not been asked in a professional sense to do that, luckily, or else I would have been so fucking pissed. I would have been
Yeah.
so freaking pissed. I'm so sorry.
No, look, it's happened
No,
even to me. Like sometimes people hear
no.
me
It's so
speak
triggering,
and
especially when it's a white person asking you.
yes,
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, like what?
it's happened to
Can
me.
you
Like,
not hear yourself? Like,
how are you
like,
telling
I'm not
me that
asking
I'm
you
not
to
Latino
lighten it
enough?
up, am I? Like,
Exactly. Like you would never say something, hey,
changing
whiten
it
it
up for
up.
me.
Like I don't know. Like it's happened even to me. They're like, "Oh, you're not actually Latino because of how you speak." And I'm like, if you
Yep.
listen to me speaking of, you'll see that there is whatchamacallit, there's a little twang in my wording. Like, yes, I do have a very, a very minimal accent, but it's still there. My first language is
Mhm.
Spanish. I didn't learn English until I was 19. Like, it was very much like I don't know why people question it. Like I don't even look a certain way. Like I'm fully me, but that's why I always say people like don't identify with what you speak. You're Latino regardless if you speak the language or not, regardless if you
Mhm.
have a thick accent or not, regardless of whatever people say. It's about how you feel, what you are. Don't ever
Yes.
let anybody question your identity. That's the most important thing
Absolutely.
for this.
And I think
Um,
that's how that our identity became our superpower because we've just been so resilient and we've been saying no. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. No, I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you why that makes me uncomfortable. Like I think we've been so resilient and so strong and to me that's what defines my superpower, which is my identity.
Yeah. I,
mhm.
I hope I hope I answered at some degree,
Oh, you
because there was
answered
like
it
a lot of,
more than beautifully.
okay, because I
Yeah.
was like, there's so many things that came up to my mind in that experience that you had, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like that is like, I'm so sorry you went through that, Lex. Like, f
No,
that lady.
that was one of many, but like I just want to say thank you so much because of you were honest and you were vulnerable, and people love to see that. So thank
Yes,
you
of
for
course.
Oh
answering
yeah.
that. That was a very tough question. I was not expecting
Yeah.
you to answer it.
Yeah, it's important to be honest because like if you're like trying to sugarcoat and be like PR about everything, like you'll never know like the
Yep.
real raw experience, and that in itself ends up being harmful to like your own community if you're not honest, if you're not honest about your experiences or how my background benefits me and how it could be also
Hmm.
almost like weaponized against you, like, oh, Mexican it up,
Hmm.
like it's something you just need to be real about your experiences because you don't know who might be like, oh, I was hoping that she would have answered it this way because I actually experienced this. Maybe if there's someone else that had a similar experience like Elix, and then if I answered in a PR sugarcoat way, they might even feel more alone,
Mhm.
in
Yep.
that experience.
Well, we
So
appreciate you answering with all your honesty. That is
I try.
that is beneficial. Okay, let's move a little bit back to the community building aspects. What advice would you give somebody who usually streams fully in English, um barely has any, let's say they're freshly starting a community in Spanish and they want to start not just Spanish but a second language channel? What advice would you give that person?
They only speak English.
No, it could be somebody who speaks a second language, not just necessarily Spanish, but in their main channel they only speak English.
I would definitely, I would definitely encourage them to separate their channels, but have some kind of unity somewhere. For example, you only have one Instagram because at the end of the day, like managing two Instagrams would be really a pain in the butt. But like, there needs to be a unity somewhere. Again, being very open about your identity, being like, hey, I am fully Mexican. This is just me, like me saying about myself, but like I'm fully Mexican. My first language is Spanish, but I also speak English, and that's my dominant language because I've lived here. Like being very up and coming. Sorry, not up and coming, but forward about your identity will bring that unity within your community. Like, oh, my streamer has their content in Spanish and their content in English, and eventually there's like I said, there's like some crossover, so like the circles, and there's some crossover there. And yeah, I think one of my biggest things is have two separate channels for most things, for YouTube, for Twitch. And I think TikTok you could keep one TikTok, and so Instagram as well. But as far as like a content where you speak a lot, I would recommend having two different. Like on my Instagram, I could speak a little bit in Spanish, a little bit in English, but ultimately it's mostly pictures. But
Yeah.
when you do a lot of content where you're speaking a lot, I think those social medias should be separate. Um, and maybe have somewhere where there's unity, like a Discord, where there's both English and Spanish.
So like in short words, like short form content, keep it cute, keep it one language, or like have that be like your unity ones. And long form content you should separate it. Like,
Yeah. I
okay.
think I think yeah, I think you put it a lot better than I did. Yeah, I think that's about it.
No, it's just that's how I process it. I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense a little bit how it should be. So we have a full Discord of they're all full of Twitch members there. We have affiliates, we have partners. They all are Latina as well. They would love to know, if you had to start today, fresh and zero, let's say you didn't have a following on any of both channels, like what would you start with? Do you think you would give yourself a chance to start fully in Spanish again, or would you do it in English only? Let's again, you don't have any following, you're starting fresh, go live button for the first time.
I guess a lot of different. Every situation is different. Like for me, my dominant language is English, even though my first language was Spanish. So I would say I would still start again in English, just because it's like you guys said, oh, you know how amazing I sound in Spanish, or like you know how I convey myself in Spanish. For me, it's like the opposite. Like I convey myself a lot better in English than I do in Spanish. Although I could definitely get what I want across in Spanish, but it's not like perfect. There's a lot of gaps there that are missing about my personality. So I would definitely start again in English. So if your dominant language is Spanish and you perfectly convey yourself in Spanish a lot better, it's really, like I said, it's a perfect opportunity in this climate to do Spanish content. Um, just up being consistent is kind of like the big chunk of content in general, but
Mhm.
especially in Spanish content, just being consistent, uploading, doing even if you're doing cute dances or a makeup transformation, just being consistent is a big factor in Spanish content.
True. And I feel like in general as well. Well, we have
Yeah.
5 minutes left. Elix, do you have anything else you would like to ask?
Not really. And again, thank you so much for answering that tough question because that was a tough question.
Really? Okay. I just let my
Uh,
my mind just kind of like. If you guys
Well,
notice, if you guys notice, I like talk like out of order. So I didn't take my Adderall today. So
well, do you have any last words you would like to say to our community in general about your experience in community building in two different languages?
Um, I guess I personally like my personal goals are definitely to be more consistent and also uh, learn how to properly express myself in Spanish. You guys may be like, Nicole, like, why don't you do it? Like, you guys have to keep in mind that I like 98% of the people I ever interact with only speak English. All like 98% of people. The only people that speak Spanish, my cousin that comes and visits me, my mom and my dad, the only people I speak Spanish with. Even like my brother, he love him, but like he understands Spanish, but he cannot talk out of the life of him. So even with him, I speak English. So I guess learning how to properly convey yourself and speaking the language that you want to also make content in, and yeah, I guess just know what you're saying, I think is probably the best thing. So because there's a lot of different social cues and different way that things roll off the tongue in a different language than they do in English. So be wary of that and be consistent, and yeah, I think above all else, make sure to support your community. I guess
Yes.
that's kind of why we're here today, is to showcase that and have that unity within our community, whether it's the Latina community or any other community that you might be part of. So it's good that we stand together and support each other, and I hope that we keep growing as a community.
Thank you so much.
I
The
do
key word
have,
there was unity because we literally
Yeah,
are, we're called the
yes,
Unity Guild.
we're a
So
Unity
you
Guild.
said
yeah.
that perfectly. Of
Just
course.
check
Can I ask one more question that
Yeah,
came
go
to
ahead.
mind real quick? So you have your English channel and you have your Spanish channel and your English channel.
Yeah.
How do you bring your culture to your channel? What do you do? And I've seen, I'll mention one thing. I'm going to spoil it a little bit. I've seen you do so many amazing Mexican dishes. I've seen you make tamales on stream.
Oh,
What
you like
other
to
things do you do to
cook.
bring your culture to each channel? Oh, and she
Good
has the
to
most
know.
beautiful kitchen setup too.
Thank you, Lex. Oh my god. Mm, so one thing that I think it's so easy to connect with is when you connect. What's one thing we all have in common here?
I think we're all
Everyone
Latino.
watching, aside from being Latina, but like video games, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So there's been such an uptick of characters in video games that represents all different communities, right? The
Hmm.
LGBTQ plus community, the Latina community, all different ethnicities and like backgrounds. So this upcoming weekend, it's been a very hectic month, but me and my friend Monse, she is a also Hispanic creator. She, I don't know if you guys have seen her on TikTok, but she's like, "Can I show you a scary video?" Have you guys seen her? Might have,
No.
That rings
might
a
have.
bell. I
But
might have.
but she's like, can I show you a scary video? And she talks about like scary videos. But me and her are gonna be cooking a Hispanic dishes, Azteca soup, and
Oh.
also bonchicitos. They're a pastry.
Ponchecitos. I think I've heard of those. Yeah.
And they are
Mm-hmm.
actually from McCree, who is a Overwatch character, and Sombra, who's also an Overwatch character. That they're
Apagando
both
las luces.
Hispanic. So McCree is from Southern California, and Sombra is from Mexico. So there's a connection between food, video games, and showcasing my culture right in one stream. So that's kind of
Okay.
the way I like to like show my background. Especially everyone loves food, so I think it's
Yeah.
easy.
That's
It's a way to
true.
connect.
We
That's
had done
such a cute methodology, though. That's so, yeah. Sorry, go, Jubby.
no, we did a cooking stream not too long ago. Elix was a part of it. And I literally I sent them a list of what ingredients to get, but I didn't tell them the recipe. And it was just me just telling them like, hey, do this, do this, do that, basically telling them the directions of the dish. And it was so funny because they didn't know what they were cooking up until the end of
That's
like when they got it.
amazing.
It was so funny. It was stressful for me because I'm like, oh God, hopefully they can get all the ingredients. But it was a fun time. But yeah,
What did it end up being? Like, what was the food after all?
we did arroz con habichuelas y pollo guisado, which is
It was
it's a
delicious.
Oh, that sounds
very
delicious.
delicious dish, but it is like a daily dish that we literally like make in Puerto Rico at this
Oh
point. Like
my god.
so easy to make, so cheap to
Yeah.
make, and it's oh,
Of
it was
course.
delicious. But yeah, Neeko, thank you so much for being here. I know that all of our members are gonna love
my
all of this
cuteness.
insightful information. And
I'm a cheetah at heart.
I would love it if, you know, we would have you in our guild. You know, it would be amazing if you want to join a community
Mm.
of,
Of course,
you know,
of course.
full Latina members that are
question
always
asked.
Ya
willing to
dijiste.
either collab or, you know, be a part of opportunities just like this.
Of course. No, this was amazing. This was very I feel like this was very refreshing, and I hope it was refreshing to everyone watching. And
Yeah.
hopefully, if you're not part of the Latina community, at least you have some insight. And if you are part of the Latina community, I hope you got to connect through us.
Yes,
Yeah.
so do
Oh
I.
my God, thank you.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
it was so Latina too, because it was just so organic. We weren't. We always have a structure for everything we do,
Yes.
but it was just so organic. And Neeko, where can everyone find you?
At twitch.tv/Neeko or Neeko Law on all social media.
Same to you, Elix. Where can everybody find you?
Oh, Elix on Twitch and Elix TTV everywhere else.
For me,
Jubby,
it's
where
just
did they?
Jubby or Jubby TV on everybody else because people they took my name. So it's either Jubby or Jubby TV. You're gonna find me everywhere. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you so much,
Today
guys.
has been presented by one of the Unity Guilds of Twitch, the Twitch Latin Guild, where me and Elix are your guild leaders. Thank you so much, and
The best.
I will see you guys later. All right.
Thank you so
Bye
much.
everyone.
Bye,
Big shout out to
everybody.
Guest Star. Thank you
Bye.
Twitch for Guest
Yes,
Star.
Thank
true. Thank you for guest star
Love Twitch.
allowing this to be possible. All right. Bye,
I'm sorry,
guys.
cussed.
Bye.
Bye.
And we're done. Oh my god. That was a lot. Did you guys like it? Did you guys let me see if I can make my whatchamacallit, my webcam bigger. Well, let's see, really quick while I talk to you guys. And there we go, we're in the middle. Did you guys like it? I hope you guys did. It was something that I've been trying to do for a long time. It was it's been something in the works for months now. I promise you, it's been a hard a hard time plotting this, but I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. I'm glad that, you know, me and Elix were able to make this happen. And I hope that the content was educational enough for anybody who wants to do content, long form, short form in 2 separate languages. I think the information that we brought today not only applies to just Spanish, I think it applies to any second language. So yeah, again, today was presented by the Unity Guilds, the Twitch Latin Guild. Me and Elix were able to do that. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, you can always reach out to me or Elix on social media, or you can check it out on the Twitch blogs, and you can find way more information. Actually, you know what? Let me be nice to you guys. Let me post the information on here you go. You can see it right here if you want to learn more about us. We have a stream team channel, thankfully, so everybody can see us and stuff. And we do events like this once a month. So if you guys want to see something like this, you can either follow me or Elix, and we always have stuff like this. But for now, I bid you farewell. I'm gonna go and enjoy the rest of my night. I will see you guys tomorrow. If you guys like to follow me, I usually play games here. I usually role play if you like GTA role play or Red Dead role play, anything like that. Or I'm playing a lot of Baldur's Gate recently. So yeah. Bye guys. Thank you so much.